Welcome to the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you, and if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Well, welcome back to Today is My Favorite Day, and we have a special guest. No, actually we have our co-host here, David Towner is back.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about some things that have been going on in his life.
Sure.
And we are in the middle of a Florida thunderstorm, so if we cut out, just hang on, we'll be back, and we'll just have some fun with it. So Dave, welcome back.
Yep, and Armageddon wouldn't be happening
That's
here.
Right, that's
At least
right.
we hope.
Yeah. But you've only been gone from the podcast. And
Yeah, I've been gone since April 24th. If you don't know, Tanya and I experienced a loss.
Right.
Yeah, I know you know, and the church understands that, but we experienced a loss with our youngest daughter, Rebekah. Rebekah passed away on that day, and then we worked through and have been working through and continue to work through the grieving process. The first 4 weeks, we stayed home, at least from Sunday mornings. I did not preach, and then realized that I was really in a really difficult place, and so my daughter and my wife actually asked me to stay off a little bit more and get with counselors and stuff. And that's what I did because it was just brutal. I mean, if you ever experience a loss of a family member, right. It's hard enough with brothers and sisters and parents and uncles and aunts, but that's more of people that are going to the future, right? I'm going to be with them in the future. They're ahead of me, that kind of thing. Unless the sibling is younger than you, then it gets a little more tied to that, the loss. But with Rebekah, it was more of the loss of the future with our family, right, and with the loss of the hope of a return that we would see with our daughter. So It was tough.
Yeah, it was tough. And you held up real well for the church, but recovery from that and the grief that you go through, it's not a one and done.
No.
And it's a long process. And so can you walk us through a couple of the steps that you went through?
Yeah. So at first, when my mom passed away just about 6 months prior to that. Right. She was my prayer warrior. My dad had passed away probably 3 years prior to that. And Dad was my mentor and a prayer warrior for me. With my dad's death, I flew back and I was in Celebrate Recovery because I wanted to be with some people and work through that process. Didn't need really a counselor for that. It was more of the guys in CR and my sponsor and stuff, and that was really helpful. And also just looking at the joy of my dad being with Jesus. He was going through some bad health. We got to usher him in, and in the book, Today's My Favorite Day, we talk about that. Right. With my mom's death, a little harder. She went through a real difficult ending. It was traumatic for everybody that was there, and so I did get some help. Just talked with a counselor I know, CR, again, sponsors and all that, and worked through that in my 12-step. In Celebrate, when I say CR, it's Celebrate Recovery. There's churches around the world that have Celebrate Recoveries. But what I did is I happened to be in a 12-step during that time, a biblical 12-step in CR. And so I went through that process with my mom, which was really helpful. We started this podcast and actually talked about, our families and the deaths and losses of that when we first were starting. I think it was like the podcast 3 or 4 or something like that we did that. Yeah. Not knowing that this was going to happen. Right. When we got the news, which is 2 police officers knocking on our door on what we call Bomb Sunday. So you have Palm Sunday at churches, and then you have Easter Sunday, and Bomb Sunday is barely anybody comes back to church because I've done enough church. That kind of thing. And it wasn't much of a Bomb Sunday. It was actually pretty good, and we came home kind of laughing about that, and we sat down and said, let's just rest, and we were watching a movie and just kind of laughing. And then suddenly, bang, bang, bang on the door. I went up there and I saw these 2 police officers there, and I went, wow, okay. And then Tanya asked, is it Rebekah? And they said yes. And she, I believe she asked, did she die riding a motorcycle? And they said, no, she died in the back of a motorcycle. Now, Rebekah, our youngest, was 5'1.5" maybe. When she was doing real well, she was maybe 105 pounds and drove huge Harley motorcycles. She just loved that stuff. She was our free spirit.
Free spirit, yes.
But it was tough because, like I said, with my dad, I was preaching with my mom and dad. I was preaching the next week. Nothing really stopped. I think my mom, I waited 1 week. My dad, I went right into it and actually used the joy of seeing him be with Jesus in a sermon. With Rebekah, I went, I could get up there and do that. And the two ladies, my oldest daughter, Shayna, and my wife, Tanya, both asked if I would not do that.
Right.
And so we actually, like I said, stayed home, and then we just started reading. We were always in the Word, so we were already doing that, but we started reading Grieving books. We got with counselors and they came to our house and we talked with them. I wailed for weeks. It was bad. Sorry. I'm going to get emotional. It's just a reality of it.
It is. It's a reality.
I wailed because it was the loss of our youngest daughter, and she was one that was struggling.
Right.
And we'll talk more about that, but just to be straightforward with you guys, that she struggled with mental health issues, bipolar, schizophrenic, and ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. And we saw this early in her life, and it got worse as it went along. She would not want to get help. So we were struggling with that too, because she was trying to help herself. She was really smart and too smart for her own good. So she was trying to self-medicate, try to, only eat organic and do all these, different oils and things. And those are great. I'm not saying not to do them, but you need other help with that.
Right.
And she just refused to do that and just started kind of spiraling from about 17 years on. And we were worried. And I mean, we were in prayer meetings. We prayed for that girl.
We did.
A lot of people in this church, a lot of people in this community, and really around the country had been praying for her that she would return.
Yes.
Because when she was a teenager, guys, she did invite a bunch of people to our church. She was pretty evangelical in her very blunt way of doing things. We called it pulling a Rebekah. Pulling a Rebekah is basically getting in someone's face and say, "Come to my church." And that's what she did, and people would come. Men and women would show up, and it was like, okay, this girl has some sort of gift.
Yeah, she apparently she could really gather people in, because when we did the memorial service here, the place was packed.
Yeah, it was packed.
We had every chair out, and we were actually going to the kids' rooms, getting more chairs for people. So
it was wild. But as far as our process goes, a lot of crying. Tanya and I we had to talk, because we knew we had already been going through the loss of our daughter prior to this, because we were just hoping she would come back. And we kept on offering her, every time I talked to her, it was a joke, but running joke. But every time at the end of the conversation, I go, "Rebekah, you ready to go to rehab? You're ready to, start working on your meds and let's take all the stuff you're already doing and put that all together." "No, I'm not going to do that." And I actually, 2 weeks prior to her death, I asked the same thing, and she goes, I'm not ready for that. And then she was gone. We've known that people dealing with mental health, we've talked to mental illness, we've talked to a lot of people, been with a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, counselors along the way. And with this kind of trifecta, if you will, it's really hard for that person to turn it around. But we always believed she would. I did. Right. I just believed it. And that's why I had people praying. I believed I'd watch her walk through these doors and everybody would go, "Hey, it's Becca," and she's saying, "I want help." And then, get the help. But she didn't do that. So we went through a lot of crying, which we still do, counseling, therapy, some therapy things. We'll talk about those later on. Probably get when Tanya in here with me, and we'll probably talk about some of those things that may be able to help some people who are going through difficult stuff. Kept looking up. Kept on speaking out. Today is my favorite day, 6 truths. I didn't realize how important that was going to be for me. The second day, or actually the day after she passed away, that morning, I woke up at 3:00 and went downstairs and just wailed. I had never felt this before, ever. And it was brutal, just hurt. And I'm not, people talk about anxiety and depression. I've never experienced those things. Some of my family members have, and they've had to explain it to me. Right. I don't know if that's what it was, but my gosh, it was just painful, just total wailing. When they talk about in the scriptures, I kind of get it now. Yeah. I don't kind of get it. I get it.
You get it. Yeah.
Tanya came down, and I was on the ground, and I woke her up, and said, sorry, did I wake her up? And she said, don't say sorry for none of this stuff. Yeah. And she just put her arm around me and cried with me. And I just started praying out. Even with the loss of her daughter, this is still my favorite day because I'm breathing. And you're my creator, sustainer, the ruler, no matter what, even when my daughter has been taken from me. I know that you love me and you're gracious and merciful, forgiving. And I know you are gracious and merciful, forgiving to my daughter. Lord, I know that I'm not alone. You're with me right now. You're omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. I was just praying these things out loud because they're truths.
Right.
And I didn't think I would ever use this
on yourself.
In the Grieving, I used it on myself because that's what I did for cancer and stuff.
Right,
and when I say it every morning anyway, just keep my mindset right. And so I just went to what is the plan He has for all this stuff. He says He protects me and provides for me, and He prospers me, and He positions me exactly where He wants me. And I believe that even in this loss. That He has a purpose for me, that I have meaning. Right. And so I just prayed that out and said, I know I'm to love you and love others, but right now I'm struggling with this. And I know you're big enough to handle this. And I know that that you'll give me the opportunity to give encouraging words to somebody sometime down the line, not right now, but encouraging words to give the gospel to somebody and serve somebody. I just don't know when that's going to be.
Right.
And then the last one was the one that went directly for Rebekah, which was, today is still my favorite day because you've given me a future and you gave a future to my daughter.
Right.
You produced it and you promised it. And I believe that. And He prepared it for her. Yes. And so heaven was prepared for her. I don't want to sound overly spiritual, guys. Bottom line is that's the truth.
Yes.
And my daughter's in a better place, though I would have rather had her here. She doesn't have to go through all that fight with that mental illness, the abuse of men over the years, because when you go in that place and you start living on your own, doing it, it's just bad.
Yeah.
And we would talk about it, and even that didn't get her to turn it around. To almost the death of an overdose, just only a few weeks prior to that, didn't get her to turn it around. But the people that we talked to that were around her, which was a lot of drug addicts, we started talking to them, went up where she was living and talked to a lot of people. They called her the mom.
The mom.
She was the mom on the streets. She was the mom that was helping people, and the mom was telling people about Jesus.
Yeah.
So I'll never understand the mental health issue. I'm trying to work on that, and we'll eventually get to a place of doing a foundation for her. We've had people give some money, so we've just let it sit there, and we're gonna, when we finally, Tanya and I get in a good place, we'll be able to start that. But so right now we're in the process.
Right.
We're in the process. So what happened is after the 4 weeks. During those 4 weeks, I would show up every once in a while to the office, but we just spent a lot of time, Tanya and I and Shayna. And then we had the celebration service. I thought I'd be better. I was worse. And that following week, Shayna and Tanya said, this is not working.
Right.
You're in such a dark place. And I got with a counselor and sat down with him and just got to cry over, and also, what do I do next?
Right.
And what do I need to do next is do what I already know I'm supposed to be doing, which is get up, and I got to look up and start doing what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant get your workouts back in. Don't stop the things you normally do. I was reading my Bible every day. I did get workouts in, but it was only like twice a week. And normally Tanya and I were 5 days a week people. We got back into that. We started reading these grieving books. So we just finished, we started reading a praise book. We wanted to praise God in the midst of this. So Tanya found this praise book that we read every day. And then after we read that for the first 30 days, then we started reading these 2 grieving books. And that's been really helpful. We just finished one. We're probably another 2 weeks from that. We're figuring out what we're going to do next. But we need to make sure that we're hunkering in with us and that we're in a good place and that we get the help we need.
Right.
And so that's what we do.
And that's critical. You mentioned the help and you mentioned counseling. And, we come from a Christian background, and there are pastors out there who would say, I'll counsel you. And the fact of the matter is there's a bunch of professionals out there who are Christians
that are awesome.
That are awesome. And
I'm not beating up pastoral counseling. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But there's certain things. I don't consider myself a counselor. That's not a skill set of mine.
Right.
I send people to counselors.
Right.
Now, there's pastors that have that skill set. Okay, I'm okay with that if they've had the education.
Yes.
and they're ready to do that, or they've been trained in pastoral counseling and how that works with counselors.
Right.
That's awesome. So what I did is, so Tanya and I went to counselors and then to a therapist. So we've done both.
Yes, and seeking help is otherwise you get led down the wrong path in your own emotions, your own mental state.
Oh, you'll be a mess.
You'll be a mess, and it's amazing. One of the statistics that's out there is 11 years it takes a person with a diagnosed mental health condition a minimum of 11 years to seek help on average.
That's pretty normal.
And it's and
Rebekah hit right around. She was like 11 or 12 years at that moment.
Yeah.
We kind of thought she was going to get ready to turn it around, but she happened to be on the wrong motorcycle at the wrong time. It was only like a 2-mile bike ride from one place to another, and it was just the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was in our minds.
Right.
But it was God's. I have to. If I believe God's in control, then it was His sovereign will that took our daughter, and that's hard to sometimes
to accept.
And I know some people would struggle with that. I'm okay with that because I could also say I don't like it.
Yeah, that's right,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to gaze at God. So basically, what I did is we did that, and then had you guys preaching, and then I came to you guys because I have a group of pastors in our church, and just said, I can't preach again. So Pastor Mark came up with a series,
right,
and you guys went another 5 weeks, and the church gave me that time. By then, though, I was involved. I was doing all the back end stuff, working with Alex and our tech teams and all that, getting acclimated. Being with people, so I was here on a daily basis, but I just didn't preach. It was just I just was not ready for that. I would have been horrible for everybody. And then after that, we took some more. We took some time during that time to take breaks with our grandsons and our oldest daughter, and we went and did a couple of staycation things and stuff, just to kind of because everybody was sad.
Yeah.
Everybody was sad, and so it was hard.
And everybody grieves in their own way.
Yes.
And we have to be able to accept that. In the church, when somebody suffers a loss, most people don't know what to say.
You're right. And Tanya got up in front. We got up in front pretty quickly after the first 4 weeks. And Tanya, being Tanya, you've already met her on one of our podcasts. You'll see her again. But she said, David, I think I need to get up and at least we need to talk about what's going on, how you deal with us.
Right.
And that's what she did. I thought she did a great job.
She did a great job. She did.
And she just said, this is where we're at. Don't fix us.
Yeah.
Pray for us, give us a hug, but don't do any fixing, any kind of Christianese language and stuff. That doesn't work. We do know that, and that's the pastoral experience we can give people.
Yeah, exactly.
Just give them a hug and hang out with them and listen.
And all goes back to our CR training too, and that is we're not here to fix everybody.
No, that's Jesus' job.
Yeah, it is. And I know there was a lot of prayer.
Yes.
And
that was a big thing. We wanted that, and we still do. But we'll talk more about this, but bottom line is that's where we are, where we were 8 weeks in.
Right.
And if you want to, we could talk about that on another episode. But bottom line is that's where we were in 8 weeks, and there's a lot more that goes on.
Right. So this has been Today is My Favorite Day with David Towner. Glad to have you back.
Amen.
And we were talking about Rebekah and the fact that she is with Jesus.
Oh, yeah. That's why today's my favorite day. I can say that with a smile.
Yeah.
Today is my favorite day because I know that I've been given heaven, and I know my daughter has heaven, and my parents do. Yep. And Rebekah got to see my parents, and I will see them later on, all three of them. And that's to me a wonderful gift. And we can all, believers in Jesus Christ, can be excited about that.
Right.
There's the lightning. We better close this down before we shut down.
Yep. So this has been Sam McEwen and David Towner for Today is My Favorite Day. Y'all live intentionally. Be very, very blessed, my friends.
Take it easy, guys.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Vaught. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.